So I'm thinking we should talk a little bit about the meat and potatoes of monster hunting, which is, of course, in the research. Like, how does one do research if you've never done research before? I think that the first thing you need to do is discover a location. Now, I live in British Columbia, which we are thick with monsters. I got to tell you, between the Bigfoot reports and Riverview and Tranquil and, oh, God knows everything else that's going on in this province. And, of course, you have to learn about these places in order to actually access them. And there's no greater friend to that than the library. You'll notice I didn't say the internet, because the library has a lot more stuff than the internet does. Well, a lot more local stuff. The second best bet, well, because let's stick with the library. If you get near your library and you're able to, well, look at old archives. And the funny thing about these kinds of stories about wild men or devils or haunted locations, this kind of stuff has always been popular. People have always enjoyed it. So it's important to, if you check the old archives and old records, that's one way of doing it. An easier way of doing it is actually talk to old people. If you can get a hold of some people who are, well, people's grandparents or people who've lived in the area for a really long time, they are a wealth of information. And quite honestly, most of these people are, they're a little hesitant to start, but what I usually do is, I'll open up with, well, I think there's dimensional portholes, and I think that there might be, things that come through. And you'll find that most of these people, they actually feel pretty open once you sort of lay your cards on the table. Because what they're afraid of is ridicule. So if you put yourself in a place where you can kind of be ridiculed first, or you let them know that you already believe in this stuff, they know that they're not going to get, beat up just by saying, well, I heard about this. There was this one area of the forest, and there was like 5 other hunters that were in this state or my province that had things happen that was just really bizarre. So that's the kind of stuff that you need to look at. It's super, super important to follow up with, well, if you can somehow cross-reference that with the libraries, if you can get back and forth, that's the best way to do it. So just like the books say, you talk to the locals, talk to neighbors, talk to people who lived in the area for a super long time, and you'd be surprised the amount of crazy stuff that goes on. Of course, on the web, there's all kinds of local reports now as more and more information gets put online. But for my province, there's old magazines and things like that, Canada West, that sort of a deal, which I'll be going through to find information that is, and make no mistake, this kind of information is actively repressed. So we've got libraries, you've got museums, any local museums, especially local historians, those people are gold. Or people in the field that may know about, other so-called monster hunters, you know what I mean? The people who aren't perhaps subscribing to this channel yet, and the people who are going to be, or would subscribe to this channel if they knew about it. Thanks for all the free advertising you guys can give us. But realistically speaking, the other side of it is, what are we looking for other than locations? Well, there is a scientific method here. There is a process which we should look at, because there's other people who've already done the heavy lifting. There's people who've gone and discovered what is real and what is not. And these people are the US government. So I started with tangible reports and tangible evidence. If you haven't checked out Missing 411, links down below to a few good articles and to his website. David Paulides, what a lot of people within the industry like, oh, he cherry picks results and all this kind of jazz. I don't really care if I'm getting information from a talking fish on the wall. If that information is accurate, I'm going to use it. So I personally respect David Paulides quite a bit. I think he's a legitimate source, but beside from just being a legitimate source, I mean, he's done the reports. If you look at his Missing 411 books, there's something very, very strange, and there's a tangible result of people disappearing. And then you couple this with the Bigfoot phenomenon, where you see that there's actual tracks and people who have no benefit. I mean, sure, there's guys who've written books, and you could argue that they do that. But each one of these books is filled with like hundreds and hundreds of witness reports. So go for tangible stuff. I mean, there is subtle energies and there is consciousness work. But when you look at how you start to see the overlap between Missing 411 and the Bigfoot stuff, and then you look at the Gateway program, you start to see that the phenomena is there. So to make this easier for you, and it's never been easier than right now, I deeply recommend getting an Audible subscription, because hot media is the way to go. You may not have time to read, but you might drive a bunch, and you can take your car and turn it into a study session. There's some amazing stuff that you should look at within the audiobook world. What I'd start with, of course, is with the Audible program you subscribe, because you get credits, and it's way cheaper to just use credits than it is to buy these books that are like 30, 40 bucks when you can get them for $16 or $13, whatever a credit is these days. But it's significantly less, especially for the kind of books that we're talking about. Incidentally, if you do get the Audible program, make sure you pick up Simon Vance's reading of the Heirloom Collection of Sherlock Holmes. Gold. So good. I could listen to cooking instructions read by Simon Vance. But aside from that, also, you got to bear in mind that, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was one of the first guys who got really badly hijacked and repressed over the spiritualism movement. Now, this was a guy who believed spiritualism was 100% real. And then out of nowhere, he was sort of vilified and destroyed over these fairy photographs where, photography at that time was a very, very rare thing. It was a very expensive thing. So we're supposed to believe that a couple of, young girls just happened to have this state-of-the-art photographic technology where they could, they were able to create this elaborate hoax. And the minute that hoax was known about, they vilified the hell out of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. And then, of course, spiritualism was largely waylaid, and after World War II, it just got crushed and destroyed. Even though, the Nazis and all the guys they brought over in Operation Paperclip, they were full on into this stuff. So look for collaboration, because if it's just one guy saying, hey, the mushrooms are talking to me, well, maybe he's having some sort of experience, but I don't know if that's something we can use. But if you can find something where a bunch of people are say that, oh yeah, there was they tried to dig a mine here, everybody goes in the mine, goes insane, or everybody near this mine keeps seeing these large hominid creatures, or whenever people are into an area, there's a large feeling of dread. And these stories go on and on and on across like a long period of time or a vast number of people. There's probably some smoke there. There's a there, as they say. So take a look at what reports are present and get yourself an Audible membership, and happy hunting.